Welcome, folks, to another episode of Who's Ghost Shanties, brought to you by Who's Ghost Stories and the Ore Buoys. I am your host, Andrew Huzar, from Huzar Reiki Readings. We've got our research expert, Sean, and paranormal enthusiast, Professor Alex Wheaton. Before we dive in, again, this is our first travel episode of the season. I think we're going to try to do travel specials whenever we can on places that we can either get to for free, like today's episodes, or ones that we may have to pay for. Speaking of pay for, if you want to help us get to some cool places, we do have a sponsorship. You can go to spiritmagica.net and you can buy some crystals. Now, if you use the link in the description and the coupon code down there, you'll get yourself a little discount, but you can buy crystal sets. This one's the fluoride and amethyst set, and as you can see, we've got these nice points, nice, sharp, pretty substantial sized points. We got a nice crystal ball. It came with a lot of extra little guys and smaller crystal balls, so definitely worth it. Shipping can take a little bit because of the way the world is right now, and it's coming from China. But if you're looking for some crystals, check it out. And like I said, we get a little kickback, so anything that you spend will support us so we can get out to some spooky places.
Yes, all that money goes for our travel fund.
Yep. So the less we have to put in separately, the better. And we can get some cool places. And we do have some cool places on our wish list.
Mm-hmm.
So for today, we are talking about Misery Bay and Graveyard Pond down at Presque Isle. Locally right here in Erie, places you can get to. There is a lot of history here. So I'm just going to go ahead and let Sean dive in right now.
If you're from or live in Erie, Pennsylvania, then you've no doubt been to Presque Isle. This gorgeous state park is a must-stop location for anyone traveling through the area. When the weather's nice, you can treat yourself to a nice day on a warm, sandy beach. If beaches aren't your fancy, then you can choose to walk or drive around Presque Isle, taking in nature's beautiful scenery. Despite the beauty and energy around you, there's a dark history surrounding the peninsula. Many children learn about the War of 1812 in grade school. They're taught interesting facts, like the British burning the original White House to the ground, and about the many war heroes like Oliver Hazard Perry. Erie is no different, but we take pride in our town and peninsula's importance to winning the Battle of Lake Erie. While the battle was fierce and led to casualties on both sides, it was the following winter of 1813 and 1814 that changed the area forever.
The war raged on, but Perry had since left Erie, leaving the Brig Niagara's original commander, Captain Jesse Elliott, in charge. Upon hearing the news that Buffalo had been sacked, Elliott was sure that a force made up of the British and Native Americans would attack Erie next. Because of this threat, he commissioned the building of a blockhouse and parked the ships in Little Bay. He had some of his men garrisoned in the blockhouse, but kept most stationed on his ships. The attack never came, but most of the panicked town picked up their belongings and fled, leaving the soldiers nearly alone for this gloomy, icy winter. Tragically, there was a smallpox outbreak among Elliott's men. Their situation was already dire, being stranded on the bay in the middle of winter. Elliott did his best to quarantine the sick crew members, but the dead bodies were beginning to pile up. He ordered his men to dump the dead bodies into Little Bay in a nearby pond. However, that wasn't enough. The illness continued to run rampant across the ships, leaving Elliott to take drastic action. With little hope of recovering, he ordered that any sick crewman be taken to the nearby pond and drowned. This order was not popular amongst the crew, but they saw it as the only way to survive. So many living and dead crew members were dropped in that pond that it was eventually given the nickname of Graveyard Pond. Because of the hardships the crews faced, the bay was renamed Misery Bay. Both of these names have stuck ever since.
If you visit either of these areas during the day, you'd never suspect such tragedies to have occurred. You'll see plenty of people fishing, kayaking, and relaxing with their families. According to legends, it's a different story at night. Even though Presque Isle closes after sunset, many daring people have stayed around long past that. People that stayed late into the night have reported a strange fog rolls over Misery Bay and Graveyard Pond, seemingly out of nowhere. Interestingly, this fog doesn't go past these locations. If the fog doesn't scare you off, what comes next surely will. Phantom and specters have been seen emerging from the dark water, dressed in old military garb. These sad souls walk around the area, seemingly on patrol. Nobody has stuck around long enough to see what happens, but the ghosts seem to return to their watery graves before sunrise. We don't know for certain if these phantoms truly exit the pond, but we do know that many poor souls call Misery Bay and Graveyard Pond their final resting place.
Talk about chills. The whole thing. It gets me. And interesting to note, like I said, we learn about the War 1812 Battle of Lake Erie a lot. For anyone that doesn't know, Oliver Hazard Perry and Jesse Elliott hated each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of feuds, but Oliver Hazard Perry also thought that Jesse Elliott was a very incompetent captain. So probably hearing that this happened only strengthened any criticism that Hazard would have had towards Elliott.
So it was a rough situation too.
Oh, yeah.
It was, people are dying, and you have the difficult choice of, do you let the sick, infect everybody and then everyone dies, or do you do the inhumane thing and drown them?
It's a lose-lose no matter what you do.
Because
it's ended badly.
I would have just shot him, but that's just me.
He was worried about the attack,
I would say
waste the bullets.
Yeah, wasting. God, I hate that was the immediate thought.
So, imagine, from
or
his
hang
point,
him, something.
Imagine from, his point of view, he did the right thing trying to quarantine him, but on a ship, you can't really do that very well, especially when you're landlocked in ice. So, his next thought is, all right, we have to, unfortunately, kill them, but we have to save our munitions and supplies, so he just has them drowned in the pond, and then the attack never coming. Because, he was sure that the British and Indians, their plan was to build sleds to traverse the ice, and that's how they were going to get to Erie from Buffalo. And that's why he stationed everyone where he did. And it's kind of interesting to me, too, to find that's the origin of, the blockhouse as well. That was his idea of, we'll put some people on land as a lookout, and then the rest will be down here waiting for them to come. And then...
Didn't we talk about the blockhouse before?
I think so. I think you could probably see it in a video of ours. We might have to put a little bubble right up there.
If you want to tie our stories together even more, the boat that found the lifeboat from the Marquette and Bessemer #2 was the Commodore Perry.
Oh, the universe intertwines even more. But like I was telling them off camera, I don't know if I just never paid attention that much in school, but I didn't know that this was the history behind the name Misery Bay and that all this happened there.
No, and I don't recall it either. I knew of Misery Bay.
Yeah.
I knew of the War of 1812.
All I knew was outbreak of smallpox.
Right.
With why it was Misery Bay, but much of the
rest of
specific details, but much like the Disney version of it, we're gonna just gloss over the scary parts, and we're still gonna give you the sad part, but we're gonna ignore we're gonna drown you to make sure that you don't infect other people.
No, and I can't imagine making any of those decisions or being the ones to carry them out, because with the way it is, since they're parked in the bay, to get to the pond, they're dragging these bodies across frozen ice.
Living people.
Yeah.
As well, yeah.
So, just none of it's any good. So I can definitely see that staining the area. And at the same time, Presque Isle is so beautiful, how much of it has, self-purified, because you would never guess that any of this
Have either of you been on Presque Isle at night?
No.
It is a very different feeling at night.
I've always gotten out real quick. Sunset.
I'm not, really in tune with spirits, but I'm in tune a lot with like feelings, like the same way that like an animal will know that there is something bad happening and you can't see it. When I was there at night, obviously we're also looking out for, park rangers and stuff like that, but it was a very heavy feeling, and there's no sounds but the wind and the waves.
Yeah.
So it's very eerie, but very heavy at night.
Yeah, and that's what it said too when you get to these parts and then a fog creeps up only these two areas. And the way Graveyard Pond is called a pond, but it's not really a pond because it connects to other ponds. So the fact that the fog would stop seemingly where Graveyard Pond is to Misery Bay is creepy as well. So I could definitely see if you're there at night, you're already seeing all this, and that stain is there. Like I could see these soldiers like at nighttime. That's when their spirits start coming out. And like I said, every story said like I only saw like one or two that mentioned actually seeing the soldiers and then beating a hasty retreat. But I wonder if like that's their like energy or imprint is them having to like patrol that area still.
Right.
Since that's what their orders were at the time when they were before they got sick. I am excited to get down there and to like look at the area from this point of view though.
Right.
To see if, even though we're in the daytime, to see if we can pick up on any feelings.
Just like Paimatooning, you've been there before, you've been there dozens, hundreds of times, and now your perspective has changed and you're experiencing it for the first time, sort of.
Yeah. And like with Graveyard Pond, like Megan jokingly, like when we were looking for it, Megan's like, "Oh, it's the pontoon bond," because that's where they launch all the pontoon boats, and that's where people get into their kayaks. Is Graveyard Pond. So like, if you're unfamiliar with the history in that, you just know that area as, oh, that's the kayaking port. That's this. This is where you go in to do that. So it'll be interesting to go down there like with this in mind, to see if there are any like sub feelings even during the day that we can pick up on. Definitely going to have to try bring a pendulum and try to see if we can cut through anything. But I am excited to go down there and see what we feel. What are your thoughts?
I want to get out there.
Yeah.
Like my thoughts, I have no expectations or thoughts. Simply, I want to get there and see what it feels.
Yeah, I agree, and I have always thought about the one time that I was there at night and just how starkly different it was from daytime to just being there at night. I don't know if it's because it's just desolate, but knowing this now, it's like, okay, maybe I was feeling something then. So it'll be interesting, even if it's during the day, just going in with that different mindset and different appreciation
to like see if you pick up on anything. Because like as far as like expectations, I would expect with this in the forefront of the mind of picking up on more of that like tragic or negative energy. Because I'm sure it's still there, but with everything else going on, you're not gonna tune into that. I don't know if I would expect to really witness anything. Like we've talked about in the first nautical episode with ghost ships and sea haunts and things, they are on like they're almost a ritual. Yeah. And so like if it is like the moon in the fog, I don't think they're coming out until that happens.
Right.
Until it's nighttime. I mean, we could see some orbs or anything like that, but I'm definitely thinking that we might be able to pick up on some of that energy.
Especially with how visited it is. There is a surplus of energy for these spirits.
Yeah, I'm excited to get down there. Interestingly, kind of want to know whatever happened with the men in the blockhouse. Because they were isolated, so I don't think they would have been part of like the illness. But like, did they know like what was happening down there at all?
They were busy burying Anthony Wayne.
Anthony Wayne. Man, where have we heard that name before? No, but I'm excited. So I think we've addressed the history enough. I think we can get down there. Just to let you guys know, we have gotten some upgrades. We do have multiple cameras now, one of which is specifically an IR camera that we'll take some pictures with. And then we have a new video camera, which also has IR capabilities. So you may see some different things as we try to see
We're
what's down
almost
there.
full spectrum, guys.
And we're close. We're close. Use that link and maybe we'll get to full spectrum one day.
Gotta get to the UV.
But thanks. Let's go ahead and get out there.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
One thing we didn't realize until we got down to the bay is that it was a lot colder than we anticipated. My house and where we recorded the podcast part was not as cold, and we found out it was incredibly windy down there. You can see here how choppy the water is just from the wind, but it was also so windy that the audio the cameras picked up was pretty useless, so I just deleted it out for the most part. As you can see here, the black and white, that's not a filter, that is the camera in IR mode. This is supposed to be used mostly in dark environments and at night to give you that kind of night vision, but I did want to test it out during the daytime just to see if it picked up anything different than what we could see ourselves. Interesting to note, as you'll see throughout the videos here, the camera was doing that flickering. We first noticed that happening at Gudelberg with the other camera. And at Gudelberg, in that footage, I was able to slow it down enough to where I could see orbs flashing. Unfortunately, with this footage, it was so fast that I wasn't able to slow it down enough to see anything at all. So it could be an orb situation like at Gudelberg, or something where the energy of the area was interfering with the camera. Or it could just be that since the area was very overcast and the sun was coming in and out, it could be the natural light affecting the camera and the lens and causing that flicker. Without being able to slow it down, I can't confirm either way if it had anything to do with orbs or energy or not. It was very interesting to be down here, especially after all that we talked about and learned, because the water is so cloudy that just from looking you can't see how deep the bay actually is. So it is, I don't want to say like awe-inspiring, but it's very interesting to picture these massive ships parked here, frozen in ice, and the struggles that they went through. We did walk all the way up the bay up to the Perry Monument, and we weren't really feeling anything spiritual. And one thing I want to note is I didn't get any sort of communication from spirit while we're here. No spirits were trying to speak to me or contact me at all. Usually when spirits want to say something, they'll start putting thoughts into my head or words, or they'll make sounds in my ears, and none of that was happening throughout the entire walk up. So even like with these light flickerings and everything that happened here, there were no spirits trying to reach out. It was nice to see all of the people out, also enjoying the bay, whether they were fishing, they were on their kayaks and their boats. It was really nice to see after such a long and snowy, cold winter, people at least outside and enjoying the bay. And I think that energy might go a long way in helping to cover up any negative energy that was at the bay or used to be at the bay. And looking at the different placards, it was interesting to see them talk about the same thing that we did. And again, just switching to that IR lens and that mode just to see if anything else was picked up. It was too windy to use the pendulum, so we didn't even bring it. And after not experiencing anything really supernatural or paranormal or even spiritual or ghostly, no real sensations of any kind, we decided to leave Misery Bay and move our way over to Graveyard Pond. It was fun to see all the little ducklings and wildlife taking to the water. But eventually we did make it over to Graveyard Pond, and this is the entrance that leads from Misery Bay to the land that's between the bay and the pond. This is where, in theory, they would have had to drag their sick and fallen soldiers. We are approaching more of the Graveyard Pond. Holy sand.
We should have gotten a map when we were right.
So as you saw there and you heard, something hit the camera. And as it turns out, it was a pine cone that actually smacked onto the lens and to me.
What was that? I don't know.
This time Andrew gets attacked by a pine cone.
That is 2 times while out doing things like this that
Someone's been hit.
Another who's our hate crime.
So, after the pine cone, I did switch to the IR just to see if I could see anything. For the most part, no, but while going back through the footage, I did see what could be an orb. If you look right here, it moves from the top of the screen, stays put until the camera pans away. With it being overcast, I don't think that was a sunspot, and the way that it moved definitely leads me to think that it was an orb. The pine cone did come from that direction, but I don't know if the spirit had anything to do with the pine cone or not. But it's definitely interesting that at the almshouse, Megan got hit with a pine cone, and down at Graveyard Pond, I got hit with a pine cone. Nothing else happened. There was no other sorts of communication or phenomena, so we did just kind of check out the area a little more, just to see any feels and things of that nature. Well, folks, we just finished walking around Misery Bay and Graveyard Pond. I'm sure you saw whatever footage I was able to put in there. Very cold and windy over at Misery Bay. Yeah. Not as windy over here at Graveyard Pond because of the trees and stuff, but still pretty cold. Overall, still a gorgeous place. Every time I come down, it's still beautiful to walk around, nice to walk around. I wish it was a little warmer. You know, we could walk around a little more, at least enjoy the area, but it was nice to get down here and check it out. Sean, how did you feel with everything?
Normal day at Presque Isle. Didn't really feel anything somber. I mean, knowing the tales does, change your mindset. Like, this is where they dumped dead bodies. Well, this is where they dumped living people and turned them into dead bodies. But it's very peaceful, serene. No ill feelings here or anything like that.
How about you, Alex?
Yeah, no real negative energy felt at all. I don't know, bad omen or what, but Andrew did get hit by something from a tree. We saw several dead fish and parts of dead fish and a whole lot of gnats that swarmed around us as we were trying to get back in the car. So
yeah, definitely weird, especially when almshouse Megan got hit with a pine cone.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an interesting little
Right.
tidbit as I got closer to the water to film. So, could that have been something? Could have been. Might not have been anything. But it is worth noting. I definitely am leaning kind of towards the theory that at nighttime, when it gets the moon involved, nighttime, the tides, like sailors things, that I could definitely see the energy shifting, because all of the niceness would be gone. You wouldn't be able to see the beauty. You wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't see the people, the sun reflecting off the water, the trees and stuff. So it would be a lot scarier. And so I could see that being more of a time when the tragic energy is felt, when the normal energy of the day is just gone.
Right.
Almost, I don't want to say barren, but when the moving of everything and the people and the cars and the birds and the animals is all gone, that you might be able to feel that a lot more. It would be really creepy and trippy. I combined the two in the one word. If you were to sit here after dark and the fog would roll in, because as we filmed and noticed, there's a path directly from Misery Bay that leads right across the street into the bigger part of Graveyard Pond. So if you were going to see ghost soldiers in fog, especially being parked like right here where there's that path between both of them, would be really creepy.
Yep. I said watching him walk right out the water, yeah, I'd be gone.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. And I could definitely see why it would be haunted. And besides just the busyness and everything, I also kind of wonder if, since Presque Isle is a state park and it's pretty much untouched and left to its own, that if nature and like water and everything has kind of cleansed the energy naturally over time, so that it's not as heavy as it would be like at the Alms house.
I'd be curious if any people that lived in the boathouses have ever seen things here.
That'd be really cool to know, especially because I don't think we're far from where this past winter, 2 winters
to the left.
Yeah, even one boathouse burnt like a winter or two ago, and someone died in there.
It's near Dead Pond.
This is true.
But yeah, I like it. I don't think we saw anything ghostly or paranormal or really felt anything. Knowing the history, I do have a little more respect for the area, just knowing that any step could be where somebody had to be put down because they were sick, and knowing what they went through. It would be cool to come at night sometime just to see what it's like and see what the feeling is then. But at least during the daytime, I think it feels all right.
Agreed.
Well, thanks for coming, folks. Next week, our nautical series ends. But thanks for coming, folks. Like and subscribe, and come back next time.
Thanks, guys.
Stay in the light.